I know that you're probably sick by now of stories about X group hasn't gotten vaccinated. You know, like, I don't know, people in a particular state or people who voted a certain way. Okay, but that said, this one is not okay. Here's the headline I saw. It's coming from a ProPublica report. Many elder care workers still refuse to get COVID-19 vaccine. Their whole thing is working with old people. How is it optional? Not her in particular. I think she's vaccinated, but your whole deal is, you know what I want to do with my life? Stop old people from dying needlessly. You gonna take the vaccine? Nah, that's commie stuff. I don't understand it. I don't understand.
Clearly, you've never worked with old people. I don't know how much empathy you got left after working with them. Maybe you're like, you know what? We could speed this up a little bit. I'm obviously joking. That's terrible. And yes, they should be vaccinated. It should be a requirement. If you're working in elder care, you should be vaccinated. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think to be fair, like we they have to take a lot of medicines, these old people. We stick them full of all sorts of things. I would hand out the needles to the old people, and if they think one of their nurses hasn't been vaccinated, stick them. You get to stick them, whatever. You're old, you've earned it. Give them a couple sticks just to make sure. Anyway, don't do that. Don't double stick a nurse. Anyway, okay, so here's how serious it is. And it's serious both for the residents, but also let's bear in mind, it was very serious for people working in this field. In the US, COVID killed more than 133,000 residents and nearly 2,000 staff members between May 31st and this July 4th, according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services report. The true toll is thought to be even higher as data gathering lagged in the early months of the crisis. Like, imagine not just hearing, okay, hey, by the way, if you get these germs, you're gonna pass them to that 95-year-old and they're gonna die. How about this? Your industry lost thousands of people. Like, if YouTube hosts were getting wiped out via COVID, and I was just like, I think I'm good. That's really irresponsible right there. But that said, 7 months after the first vaccines became available to medical professionals, and bear in mind, medical professionals in this sort of field were among the first people in the country to get access to it. Only 59% of staff at the nation's nursing homes and other long-term care facilities are fully or partially vaccinated. The overall numbers for partial vaccination in the US are 59%. They're not even beating the average. 8 states report an average rate of less than half. 23 individual facilities had vaccination rates of under 1%, which means Paula got it. In the whole staff, Paula got it, and that's it. Nobody else got it. Jesus.
Good for Paula.
No, but like 59%. How could you go in every day? You could be bringing a virus to some old sweet person or old terrible person. I don't care. You can be terrible if you're old. You still shouldn't die. And I want to give you an example of one individual. Oh, by the way, there are lawsuits, by the way, to try to force them to get it. And it seems like so far the courts are generally siding with the care facilities requiring vaccination. And by the way, often when they say they're gonna require a whole bunch, are like, well, then I'll leave rather than get it. And then it turns out that's generally not what happens. But anyway, one woman who works at a place like this, she's not vaxxed. Her fiance and her children, ages 12 and 13, are also unvaccinated. But she says, I don't consider myself an anti-vaxxer, bristling that some might see her as reckless or ill-informed. Instead, she said her decision was carefully considered. It never made sense to her, she said, that the virus seemed to strike randomly, with some residents getting sick while others did not. She said she is not convinced the vaccine would change the odds. It's weird because that was sold to me as carefully considered and just being bewildered at the chaotic nature of life. Why is it that some cars crash and others do not? Thus, I will snip my brakes. I don't believe they'll change the odds at all. Yeah, the world's a chaotic place.
Can you just put up that graphic again? The graph of like what COVID cases going down in February and March. Do you guys have that?
Yeah, well, can we go back to the early the New York Times chart?
Yeah. See, what happened? God, that's so. What was that? I know she's talking about the odds, and I guess odds have to do with numbers. Is it numbers or numbers?
Well, if it's plural.
Numbers and statistics and graphs. And so this is a graph, and you can see the giant downward spike, the falling of the graph in February, March, and April. And I wonder what that is due to.
It's probably solar flares, I would imagine. It's gotta be solar flares. Yeah, you're 100% right. She says, I don't think it'll change the odds. That's literally what it does. And not only that, we can tell you exactly how it changes the odds. The odds it changes, that's what it does. Do you lock your door? Do you wear a seatbelt? Do you eat food? Like I know that this is what you're not supposed to be doing. We're like mocking them or whatever. But like this isn't just some rando. She works with elderly people. If she thinks that the thought process we just dissected was carefully considered, what other decisions is she making for these elderly people? What is she responsible for? What have we done as a society?
Well, I mean, there is no coincidence to it is not only because they were elderly, but it's because that so many elder care facilities we know are rife with a lot of corruption and horrible like lack of care, abuse, outright abuse, and also rampant with a lot of other viruses and bacteria. And these are not the cleanest places. And I just want to say, this goes back to infrastructure as well, right? If we pass an infrastructure bill that is robust, that does include things like elder care and home care and health care, like this will drastically improve the amount of money that we are investing in the elderly in this country and in people who are choosing to stay at home or be cared for at home and paying those workers adequately. Look, I don't think it's easy to work in elder care facilities at all. We know it's not. Yeah. We know how underfunded and underpaid. We know that these corporations that run a bunch of different facilities are super corrupt, right? They've been like lawsuit after lawsuit. They somehow still survive. And I think that it goes back to our political priorities. And Biden's got to keep on making this case. Look, it worked for him. It worked for him in the election to really get elderly people on board, because they were like, oh yeah, I don't want to die. I mean, I like Trump, but I don't want to die.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.